Happy New Year and welcome to CEO Direct from Leatherhead and the headquarters of the Police Federation of England and Wales. Well, it's going to be a really important year for policing, a lot to discuss around that, and also a hugely important year for the Police Federation. So I'm delighted that I'm joined by the CEO of the Federation, Mukund Krishna. Mukund, Happy New Year. Welcome to this edition of CEO Direct.
Happy New Year, Danny, and thank you for spending the next few minutes with us.
So there's a lot to touch on. I want to start, if I may, with the sort of general state of the Police Federation. A lot of people will know that it's been a difficult 18 months or 2 years because of the pensions ruling. I think you have said that the Federation was at the brink of an existential crisis about 18 months ago when you started this role. The Federation is still here, it's survived. Bring us up to date with the picture and how it's looking following that pensions ruling.
Sure. As always, there's a lot that's happening in policing. There is a lot that's happening in the Federation. I think it's about 18 months to my appointment as the Chief Exec. And we were tasked with two things. Two most important things. One is to recover the organization from the existential crisis, as you've called out, where the potential liabilities that we were carrying at that time far outweighed what we could really afford financially. And the second priority was to rebuild the organization so that we are able to support officers for generations to come. So the last 12-18 months has been focusing predominantly on the first priority, and we've started to set the wheels in motion on rebuilding aspect as well, which is the second priority. It's been a pretty roller coaster ride, pretty intense, complex negotiations with the lawyers on the other side, and it's taken us 12-13 months from the first meeting we've had with them following the employment tribunal judgment to sign on the dotted line.
So you settled the claims, the claims.
Well, we've settled one of the two main claims we have. One was the pensions claim, which everyone knows about and you've touched upon.
Now, how much is that going to cost the Federation?
Some of this is still legally privileged because we did have to sign up to confidentiality to protect the interest of the claimants as well. But what I can say is we have agreed 95p of every pound we own as a federation, leaving 5p of every pound to continue to fund essential services for the membership.
So what does that mean in terms of the Federation's finances? I mean, I think the legal bill was estimated at £60 million. Wasn't that what was wanted? But you're not going to pay £60 million. Federation is not going to pay 60 million, is it?
No, we don't. And that's part of what I was trying to say earlier, which is the liabilities we were carrying 12-18 months ago far outweighed the affordability. So what we had in the bank was about 8 million in cash terms and reserves. And then we had the Grace and Flavor flats, the 11 flats, and we had this building at our disposal. And all that combined falls way significantly short of the liabilities we were carrying potentially, which is why the last 15, 18 months have been about trying to negotiate a settlement with the claimants or the lawyers and the claimants on the other side, so that we are able to keep the lights on and have a future.
Will all of those almost 10,000 claimants get some sort of compensation or some money?
Yes, we have agreed the compensation. Every one of them is eligible. What they get paid and how they get paid, that's between them and their lawyers, Lide. But we have agreed a terms of settlement with Lide.
And are payments beginning to be made?
We made the first, the payments in 4 parts, 4 equal parts. We made the first part on the 30th of November, the date on which we signed the contract, the settlement contract. The second part is due next week, imminently.
So can you give us a rough amount? It's not 60 million clearly, but can you say roughly what the sort of total burden is going to be eventually when all the payments have been made? Are we talking multi-millions here, aren't we?
We are massively. We are talking, we are talking, I'll put it this way, the entire settlement is a little over a third of the liability on the lead.
So around 20 million or so, something like that. Huge amount of money.
It's massive amount of money. We've never had it. And I think one of the realization for us as an organization is we have never been set up as an organization 100 years ago to fight group litigation. We've been set up to fund member claims. So
that's the irony, isn't it?
That's the irony. And with that as the context, we've come this far and we've had to turn things around to make us more relevant.
Well, we're going to come on to what went wrong during that and how you're going to fix it in a minute. But just to be clear then, the Federation is financially viable going forward, but you're going to have to make some cost savings. So what are you doing in terms of those cost savings? Where is that money going to come from?
You're right. Whilst we have agreed settlement with Lide on the pensions.
Lide, the legal firm.
The legal firm on the claimant side. We have to deal with the data breach claim, which is the next big challenge for us. And the discussions are ongoing with the lawyers on their side. It's a different law firm we're dealing with.
So that's going to be extra to the 20 million?
That's going to be extra to the 20 million. The branches have contributed towards the settlement as well with Lide, because we recognize that it's a collective responsibility as an organization, not just HQ versus the 43 branches. So we are in discussions with the data breach claim lawyers to look at where that goes. What that really means is the next 2-3 years, we've got to be a lot more financially prudent. It's a tough financial situation for us. We have a framework that will help us rebuild our reserves, but we've got to pay out the monies we owe. That is a priority for us. Where is the money coming from? What I can tell you today, which we have not really previously mentioned, is Leatherhead, this building is going up on sale this month. Okay, the 11 flats that we own, they are going through a sale process as we speak.
They're under offer?
They are under offer, and the contracts, I believe, are due to be exchanged imminently in the next few weeks.
And does the Federation own those flats outright?
We own those flats outright.
So that'll bring you in some money?
That can bring money. And then this building, when it goes up on sale, which I can tell you now, will contribute towards the settlement.
What's the asking price for this building?
Well, contrary to popular, I guess, information out there, where people think it's 30 million, it's 20 million, whatnot, it's not even worth a third.
What about 10 million?
It's not even worth that.
8?
We are looking at the valuations that we've had is anywhere between 3.5 and 5.
Right.
That's the valuation, and then that is an eye-opener, because unlike people thinking we are cash rich and we are sat on multi-million pounds of reserves and assets, that's 30 million, what was the value of this building, is very quickly downgraded to 3.5 to 5 million. So you wipe away 20, 25 million straight away off that 30 million. Right. And the rest is being contributed towards the settlements.
Right.
So financially, we are in a really tight place.
So even if you sell the building, you sell the flats, you've still got to make savings. Is that going to come through redundancies, or are there other ways you can make efficiencies?
We have been reviewing departments at HQ. We have been reviewing all our cost structures. It's something that I've always said since my appointment, which is every department in Leatherhead will go through a review. We will be looking at every area of our spend in terms of running our day-to-day business locally and nationally. But equally, the commitment that I have made is we are going to ring fence the budgets for funding essential services. So funding member claims, providing training, providing IT support and things like that for the reps to undertake their day-to-day jobs and supporting the membership, we are ring-fencing that funding. That is not compromised. But everything else is on a need-only basis.
So there could be job losses, or there may have to be job losses.
I'd not like to, I'd not want to, but at the end of the day, it's the organization, the entity, and the membership we need to focus on. And we are incredibly prudent in the way we spend the money and where we need to cut the expenditure. And that includes the building as well, as I just said. So.
Let's just focus for a minute on how the Federation got into this terrible situation, if we can. There was an independent review that was commissioned and that reported at the end of last year, and it makes really difficult reading. Let me just quote you one bit from it. It talks about some of the mistakes that have been made in the Federation in regard to the pensions claims. It says, this all smacks of an arrogant and inward-looking culture born of a centralist mindset and a feeling that the interests and views of rank-and-file members do not matter. Goes on to say, until the culture of the organisation changes radically and senior leadership recognise the roles of service they perform, the failings of the past could happen again. Do you accept that?
I've always said we got things wrong. I've always said there have been leadership failings in the past. The judgment is a hammer blow, I think is the words I've used in my conference speech, to the Federation. And there are people who asked me prior to the report, what do you think we can expect from that looking back report? And my response is, what do you think we're going to get when you lose at a £60 million litigation? Let's be very honest about it. We messed up, we got things wrong. And so you are not going to, any reasonable person would think that is going to reflect in the report. The more important bit is, how do we respond to this? Because that is how we are going to be judged and measured by, especially this leadership and the future generations to come. So it goes back to the two things really, which is recovering from the existential crisis and rebuilding the organization. And how we are going to respond to this is the way we are rebuilding the organization. Now, having met so many members, Danny, up and down England and Wales, I'm continuing to meet. I met hundreds of them so far. There are 4 or 5 things, the common themes that come out, okay, which is at the heart of what you just heard, which is the response to the heart of what you just read. Okay, in no order, they want us to secure a financial future so that we are there to represent them for generations and fund their claims and support them. That's one. They want to know where the money is going, transparency on where is the subs going. And we've done an awful lot of work recently on showcasing how member subs are spent. The member value report we published just before Christmas is a great artifact that shows factually where the money is being spent and the value we are driving for the membership. You know, we've kind of won in excess of 115 million in the last triennial for the membership. Every penny going back to the membership.
In compensation claims, 115 million, yeah.
115 million. It's kind of stuff that we've been doing, but we have not been promoting.
Yeah.
So there's an awful lot of good things we do as well. But it's important we showcase, we need to be more open and transparent, not just about the decisions we are making and our failings, but also about the positive stories. Because whilst there are bad apples, like in policing and maybe in the Fed, the vast majority are incredibly good, committed, and want to do the right thing for the membership. And we seem to be letting them down, and we seem to be focusing more on the stuff that we haven't done and not got right, and ignoring the stuff that we've done well and have got right. So the third thing the membership asks a lot, or the feedback that we get, that I've got in my roadshows, is can you just improve the way you work? Can you become a more professional organization? Right. Not replacing officer roles with professional just improve the way we work.
Yes, if you read that report, professionalism is the last thing that comes out from it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, you know, poor record keeping was one of the findings, focused on internal reforms, defensiveness, national secretaries not updating the board as they should do, disdain for rank and file officers. I mean, it's not a professional, hasn't been a professional organisation as painted by that independent review. And that's something you've got to fix.
Absolutely, absolutely. Membership are calling for a professional organisation. They have been calling for a true representative body that can represent them genuinely. They are calling for a body that can negotiate the best possible terms and conditions. They are equally calling for a better service delivery from us. And what they're actually saying by that, when you probe further into it, is can we get our act together? Can we become more externally focused and not internally focused? And everything that the review is saying, the membership are also giving that feedback.
So you've got a clear message from the review and from the members, and you know what you need to do.
Absolutely.
How are you going to do it? Because these are not small changes or tweaks to policy or procedures. They're fundamental things about changing the culture of the organisation, the way it runs itself. How are you going to do that, Mukund?
Danny, firstly, it's not going to happen overnight. Okay, we are steeped in history as an organisation. We are over 100 years old, and this is about taking the organisation on the journey and the people on the journey. Okay, so for those who are becoming impatient about the fact that it's been 12 months, 18 months, 24 months since the judgment, what have we done? I will call out in a few minutes the kind of progress that we have made, but the best is yet to come is what I will say. The best of years is yet to come. Number of changes we have made already. The priority has been to get us out of the existential crisis.
Yeah.
If we didn't have a future, there was very little point in trying to change the policies and procedures and the way we work and things like that. So now that we know we have a future, after significant hard work, we are now able to draw traction towards what are the changes we need to make. Having spoken to a number of chief constables and having observed forces like GMP, which used to be an underperforming force many years ago, and now one of the most decorated forces, the lesson that we are learning and the observations that we are making, even speaking to senior officers in those forces, is the approach they've taken to conduct and behavior. Forces like GMP have adopted a zero tolerance policy towards inappropriate conduct and behavior. If we can't get that right and we can't change that culture, as they say, culture doesn't need just strategy for breakfast, it needs everything for breakfast. And then that starts with the people we have and the way we approach problem solving.
So, crack down on poor behaviour, inappropriate behaviour.
Yeah.
Is that reflected in the fact that there are 3 senior officials from the Federation who are currently suspended? Is that part of that picture?
The overarching umbrella is the inappropriate conduct and behavior. Now, without giving a running commentary on each of these individual cases, and we need to respect the privacy and the integrity of the process, there are a number of other issues that are involved in relation to the 3 individuals. And I must stress at this stage, they are allegations.
Yeah.
Investigations are ongoing. It is not completed. We, from a PFEW perspective, we are prioritizing it to run them and complete them as soon as possible. Independent investigators have been appointed, and we will await the outcome of the investigation report, and after which, based on the recommendations, we will form a panel of their 3 peers who can then hear the findings of the report.
So just for the avoidance of doubt, we're talking about Steve Hartshorn, the national chair, who's been, I think, suspended since September of last year over an internal governance matter. Richard Cook, the West Midlands chair, in December he was suspended. Multiple complaints because of a social media post in which he branded allegations of racism in the West Midlands force as nonsense, and Rick Pryor, suspended since October last year over an interview he gave for GB News. So all of those three are still ongoing, and independent investigators are looking at those, and there'll be a panel will be set up to make findings. That's the process, is it?
A panel of their own peers.
Right.
It is not for me to decide who is removed from the federation.
So have you had any part in the process, in the suspension process, in the decision-making process?
My role as the chief exec is to ensure a fair and consistent application of the process. I don't get involved in the decision making, because that sits with elected officers in the form of Fed reps, and they need to decide. I want to use this opportunity, if you don't mind, to actually quote a very interesting fact. I've taken responsibility for PFAW standards. When we talk about governance in the context of investigations, what we're talking about is standards. Like any responsible organization, we have what we call as an Appendix 8 standards. It is me included signing up to 8 or 10 standards of certain levels of behavior and conduct. Okay? And when there are complaints that come in that allege breach of these standards, based on severity assessments, suspensions are undertaken, both to protect the individual and the integrity of the process and the witnesses and so on and so forth. The important fact that I want to quote is, and I shared this at the National Council meeting at Cardiff in November, just gone by. Prior to me taking responsibility for standards within PFAW, under the leadership of the previous national secretaries, there were, in 1 year alone, about 11 people suspended. Okay? Under my leadership, there are 4. So contrary to popular belief out there to say this guy's coming and taking over and a power grab and here and there, the numbers will speak for themselves. What we have done since me taking responsibility for standards is we've introduced independence. Previously, there were no independent investigators. There were ex-federation representatives who would come back as members of staff and undertake investigations. I've had feedback from the organization saying allegiances are formed, cliques are formed, how can the investigators be independent, they're partial. The national secretaries would perhaps take a view on investigations depending on who they felt the individual was, and so on and so forth. So all we've done is cut through all that red tapeism, bureaucracy, and we professionalized it now.
Who are the independent investigators? Where are they from?
They are experienced lawyers who are bound by SRA guidance and guidelines. They are law firms, not just independent lawyers, but also reputable law firms that we've engaged with, A-list reputable law firms we've engaged with, who specialize in employment law and who specialize in investigations of this magnitude. Mm-hmm. It's costing us a lot of money. Let me be honest about that as well. It's costing us a lot of money. But this is not just about the money, this is also about doing the right thing. And what I will stress on is this. For the first time, I think in a long time, membership are coming forward and putting complaints in. In the past, it used to be Fed reps making complaints about Fed reps. Now we have membership coming forward and putting complaints in.
Complaints about Federation officials?
Against Federation officials.
Right. And you think that's a good sign?
I think that's a good sign where people are not worried about implications. I think that is something that we as a federation should actually be open about. Because if we are going to represent the members and support them, then we need to be open to challenge and scrutiny.
How many complaints are you getting? Is it dozens? Is it hundreds? Or
significantly higher than previously? Put it that way. Okay, significantly higher than previously. At the minute, we are sat on about 30 odd complaints, and every single complaint is from a member, and more than one member. And then this is where the dynamics change a lot. When membership start making complaints, and you have more than 1, 2, 3 members coming in and making complaints and strong allegations, we have a duty to act. It does not really matter what role an individual holds in the organization, and that applies to me as well.
And you think this is part of changing the culture? This is an important part of changing the culture?
And I'm not trying to, and I'm not for a second trying to undermine the 3 individuals who've been suspended or trying to conclude one way or the other about them. An independent process is underway. But you're right, part of changing the culture is about getting our own standards in order. And that is the emphasis here. It is that I am bound by the same standards. I expect all officers to be bound by the same standards. And I expect the staff to also deliver to a certain level of standards. No one is immune to standards. And unless we get that right, we are going to struggle to transform and reform.